Yeah.
And, it hit me hard. It hit me to the point where I did not feel like life was worth living. And I attempted to
Mm.
take my life. But I am grateful for my Savior who said, no, I still got some other things for you to do.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm still here today. And so just powering forward through all of that. Again, that's where sports played a huge role. That I
Yeah.
found a love for something that gave me excitement. It gave me a reason to get up. And I've been able to push forward through this thing called life, going on collectively 17 years this year without both of my parents.
Unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface. Welcome back to another episode here on Beyond the Surface. And today I am so honored and grateful and also very deeply excited to see where this conversation goes. Kenisha, I am so happy that you are joining me here today. So thank you so much, first and foremost, for being here. I so appreciate you.
I'm excited.
Um,
Thank you, Ashley.
yeah, it's going to be such a beautiful conversation. I'm really touched when just being able to dive into people's journeys and their stories. And it's what I think is so interesting is that who you are, and a lot of who you are is in the sports industry, but that is not at all what we're diving into. We are diving into a conversation of your journey of losing your mom, and also I guess you yourself becoming a mother, right? Or
Yes. Yes.
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure. I know we're going to find out more of the story, but I'd love for you to just take a moment to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about who you are. I know it's a loaded question. I always say that, but whatever comes to mind.
Absolutely. Well, again, Ashley, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm grateful to be here and to just share a little bit of part of my journey, and hopefully, someone hears something that may resonate with them and just help them along their way. So, again, I'm Kenisha Nichelle, originally from Louisville, Kentucky, but I do reside now in Miami, Florida. In a nutshell, because my journey can be really, really long. I do work in sports. I have worked in sports for the duration of my professional career. I am in events and operations, and more specifically, football operations, where I'm the senior director of operations for an HBCU football game. I love sports. It is my passion. It is the thing that drives me. There could be a million other jobs that I could have, but it does. Even though it's the long days, it brings me excitement and brings me joy. But I hone in on that because I had to find something that I enjoyed, because life took a turn for me, and it started very early at the age of 12. I was a daddy's girl, loved my father to pieces. And at 12, I lost him to a brain aneurysm. And so that's the first time that I was struck with loss and grief and trying to process all of the things.
Mm.
And I'm an only child, so I had to navigate all of those waters theoretically, by myself. Of course, I have
Mm-hmm.
family, but, don't have anybody else, a sibling to kind of go through it with. So that was my first experience with loss. To fast forward, here I am, college student. I'm away from home, living my best life, doing all of the things. If you can remember when you were in college, what you were doing. And I get a phone call that my mother was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And so that completely shook up my world again. Here I am, a sophomore in college, trying to live my best life and
Mm.
having to go up and down the highway to take care of her. And in 2007, I was 21 years old, and I lost my mother to breast cancer. And I was deemed an adult orphan. I was in this place where I was in this big old world without my guiding light. And it was hard. It was very difficult because I hadn't accomplished anything, not graduated, married, kid, nothing, right?
Yeah.
And, it hit me hard. It hit me to the point where I did not feel like life was worth living. And I attempted to
Mm.
take my life. But I am grateful for my Savior who said, no, I still got some other things for you to do.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm still here today. And so just powering forward through all of that. Again, that's where sports played a huge role. That I
Yeah.
found a love for something that gave me excitement. It gave me a reason to get up. And I've been able to push forward through this thing called life, going on collectively 17 years this year without both of my parents. And so I know I look young, and I know it look like it, it can't be 17 years. And I laugh at myself all the time when I think about it. But yeah, and to fast forward, I did get married and I do have a beautiful
Mm.
daughter. And so I am living this life without my mother, raising a daughter, and it comes with
Yeah.
its challenges. And so
Mm.
I'm grateful for the things that they've instilled in me to be able to do the very best that I can. But the truth is, I am doing this without them. So that is my story. That is who I am. But again, I'm grateful that it didn't last always and that I'm here today.
Mm. There's so much that I
I know.
want to unpack with you. And I want to just go on the journey with you. But I just want to say too, it just, I think about too, like all the things that maybe this is just me just being so deeply grateful and in love with being able to connect with people from all walks of life, and having a show where I can do this, right? Like two complete strangers that can come together and we can just you can share your story and we dive in, right? And it's
Yes, like good
the thing
girlfriends.
is, right, like I never take it for granted. And so just in this moment and also hearing, and I just can't even imagine at such a young age, it's like it's exactly like you said, like you didn't haven't done anything just yet, like that's the beginning, like that's
Right,
the beginning of
literally.
life. And that moment, of you feeling like you wanted to take your own life and you attempted, and I'm just like in this moment feeling just so grateful that you are here and to be in this conversation. There's many things that you did, and for us to land and be here in this moment, and it's a testament too
Peace
of
of
who you
mind.
are, your strength and courage and all of that. And I kind of almost want to start and take you, like, go back, if you're okay to go there too, of just how on earth, like, this is such a loaded question, and the only question I can think of is
Go right
how on
ahead.
earth did you even navigate? It's one thing that you have that first loss, and I remember that first loss for myself too. I was 12, 13 when I lost my cousin suddenly, and it was like at that age you're just, and especially when it's your first, you're trying to process something that just doesn't make sense. Like, I think the thing for myself was always like, what do you mean I'm never going to see this
Like, what
person
does
again?
never
Like
really
this.
mean?
Yeah.
Can you
Like
define that?
my brain could not put
Mm.
those two things together. I was
Yeah.
like, no, but wait, are we really saying
Like
never? Like
tomorrow
that?
they should be here.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so strange. So I mean, there's that, but then of course, not too long after, like, you lose both your parents. Like, how did you even, I don't know, how did you navigate that?
How?
Yeah.
So the first one with my father, like I said, I was a daddy's girl. My At that time, my parents were high school sweethearts. They got married, but they ended up getting divorced. I say all
Mm.
that to say, I live with my dad, so like, literally, I'm a daddy's girl. Like, they let me choose, and I chose. Like most girls would choose their mom. No, I chose my
Yeah.
dad because that was like my guy. Right? I'm actually named after him. Um,
Aw,
and so yeah, he's Kenneth. So that's where
I
Kenisha comes from.
love that.
But no, it caught us by surprise. He had a brain aneurysm, so he was a police officer, and he was
Mm.
in the middle of training. They came and got me out of school. I was like, "What's going on?" And went to the hospital, and he was paralyzed on one side from the brain aneurysm. That happened on a Wednesday. between Wednesday and then Saturday is when he passed. And so, I was devastated. Like literally, we had so many special bonds, special connections. We would go out, we would spend the day together, and you know, it rocked my world to the point where, and again, you're probably gonna see me chuckle about it because it's funny, but it's not funny.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wanted to hurt myself then, but I didn't know what that
Mm.
meant. But I knew that I
Yeah.
had pain, and so I'm sorry. I tried a butter knife on my arm. I did. And I'm laughing
Yeah.
because it's like I can't even believe that I was thinking that
Yeah.
way. But I tell people all the time when I share these stories, and people say all the time, "Oh, I would never do that. I would never." You do not know what you would do when that
Yeah.
pain is hitting you here. I
Yeah.
am a Christian girl. I grew up in the church, love God, love like I can quote scriptures and all the things. But you do not know when there's a pain that is so deep that you just don't know how to get rid of it. And you just feel like, well,
Yeah.
if I can just release it, then maybe it'll go away. And
Yeah.
so that was my first kind of bout with mental health, if you will. This
Mm-hmm.
is 1999, so it's not like today where we're talking about it. And I will thank my family. They did recognize that, something wasn't right. They did put me in children's therapy. I was first introduced to art therapy, and
Oh.
just kind of like releasing your feelings and talking about it because I was with other kids who were going through, similar situations. So they did
Mm-hmm.
the best that they could to help me figure it out, if you will. But
Yeah.
I didn't have a place. Like, other than
Mm-hmm.
that, I didn't know because it's not something that we talked about, especially
Yeah.
in the African American community. We're definitely not. There we'll pray for you and we'll make sure Kenisha's covered and she's all right. But nobody really knew on the inside. Like I went back to school and, I was in the
Ugh.
seventh grade and, just trying to live and do the best that I can. I mean, life kind of got a blur for me between that point
Yeah.
and college. I did end up, moving with my mom and living with her, afterwards. But that little point right there, yeah. I mean, I just try to live, if you will.
Yeah. And the thing is too is that at 12 we don't have the same tools as if you
No,
were 30 in your 30s,
right,
right? Like
right.
you don't even have those tools to be able to, I guess in a sense, like cope or I don't know if understanding is the piece of it, but I think coping, you just
Mm-hmm.
don't have those tools. It's like, the your whole world gets flipped upside
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
It's, you were living with your dad, your whole world gets flipped side down,
Everything.
upside down. It's, part of, in a, dare I say, a part of your identity
Mhm.
is
That was a
also
part of conversations I probably shouldn't have been. My dad had
right.
remarried. So it's like, okay, what do we do with the house? Well, Kenisha's the only child. And so what would Kenisha want? And
Oh,
they're asking me, and I'm like,
I'm
I don't
12. I'm
know.
12.
I'm 12. I'm just like, my birthday's in 2 months. Can we do that? Like, I don't, what am
Yeah.
I doing? So
Mm,
I remember those kind of bits and pieces. Of course, my memory's fragmented because it was so
yeah, of
long
course.
ago, but that's kind of the nuances of what it
Yeah.
was. But I get asked this question sometimes too, well, how do you help other children? Because children do grieve too. And I just think you have to be intentional in watching them because the acting out, the different
Mm,
behaviors, those kind of things are telltale signs of, what they're feeling. They may not be able to articulate it, but if Johnny goes to school and starts slapping people now, maybe it's because it's coming from a place where he really doesn't know how to articulate how he's feeling because
yeah.
grandma just died or someone just passed away. So I always tell people, watch your children, try to give them the best life that they can. I don't sugarcoat. I would explain it
Yeah.
in a healthy way where they can understand, but also, you want to keep an eye out because they will start to show signs of grief
Yeah.
and you want to be able to help them in the best way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's so important to you, that little thing, you know your child more than anyone, right? So you'll be
Right,
able to see
right.
when something is off, like, and I think trusting, um I mean, I feel like we'll get into that, but I feel like trust is such a big part of like
It
trusting
is.
yourself and trusting like what is coming up and what you're feeling, like trusting your own
Mhm.
intuition of like, something's not right, and being able to be that advocate for you and also for your
Mhm.
child, if that is the case too, and when they're grieving at such a young age. I'm curious too, like how after your dad passed, like how did your relationship with your mom change? Did it change at all?
That's a really good question. No one's ever asked me that. So, in full transparency, because I believe in that, I did have a strained relationship with my mom. Loved her, loved everything about her, but it was strained because, I did choose to live with my dad after they were divorced. And so, of course,
Yeah.
she's moving on and she's, trying to go on with the rest of her life. But in some aspects, it didn't include me. She wanted to start dating again. And so we ran into some situations where I felt, my mother, she chose dating over me. So
Mm.
we had a tumultuous relationship, to be very, very honest, to where when he did pass, and I, had to go and live with her, I talked to my mom, like straight up, like at 13, 14 years old. I said, now I know that I have to come and live with you because I have to. But I'm going to ask that you don't date. I'm going to ask that you don't, do those things until I leave for college. Like that was the
Mm.
deal, So I told her that, and I remember, she listened. She actually, well,
Yeah.
as far as I know, she might
Yeah.
have. As far as
Do you
I
think
know.
in that moment, do you think that like in hindsight, looking back, do you think that like you were in the right or the wrong for that? Like do you still stand by asking her not to do that? I'm just so curious. Like in terms of from the
This is
perspective of
good.
like
Um,
her living her life too, and the opportunity to move forward. I
I
just
think
curious.
because I'm an adult now and I see things from a different perspective. I don't. So if my daughter was to say that to me, I don't know if I would go with it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm, yeah.
It's just like you can't. Like you're a child. You can't. You
But
can't tell
maybe
me.
too. I mean, obviously, I
Right.
can't speak for your mom, right? But maybe it
Right.
was like, I have my daughter here.
Right.
I'm gonna,
And
I'm
we
gonna do what
lost
I
some
can.
years. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But that's nobody's ever asked me that. But I don't know. I think I part of me still believes that I was in the right, just because of how ugly it got. And I'll just be honest,
Mm,
it did. And my father was a police officer, so use your imagination with the tools and resources that he had to be able to
yeah.
be nosy.
Mm,
So um yeah,
fair.
I part of me still thinks that yes, because it mattered. Um and I didn't want to run away. I didn't want to not love her. I didn't want to not be with her. But I knew that if this was going to work, that it'd have to be some
Mm,
middle ground.
yeah.
And so yeah, as far as I know, she listened. I think like as soon as I moved into college, she had a question. I was like, okay, so where'd you come from?
He was there all along, just maybe just on the side.
I'm like, whatever. I got my own place because I went to school about an hour
Yeah.
away from home. So I'm like, I'm living my life. You live your life, girl. Go ahead.
Yeah. But it's interesting too because it's like that, it's also a new beginning for you both too, and it was like kind of like
It was.
the focus was also like the relationship, building that relationship between you two. And
Yeah.
I mean, how was that be like building that relationship? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't
Um,
easy, of course not. It's never easy to build.
yeah.
I mean, I had that strained relationship with my dad, and so
Yeah.
coming together at, I don't even remember what, I want to say like late teens, early 20s is
Okay.
probably when we like really came back together.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just, it's different,
It is
like I have a
different.
very, the relationship I have with my dad is very different from the relationship that I have with my mom. Like
Of course. Yeah.
it's kind of like how you and your dad, it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's me and my mom. Like, sorry, man. Like,
Yeah.
no one's going to change that.
Yeah.
She did so much. But I also have so much love and respect for my
Mm,
dad, and
right.
also love for the new relationship that we're building. And, if I was so focused on the past and him not being around,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have a relationship with him. And,
Yeah.
now it's like being an adult. I think I just look at it from this different perspective where I can just look at him as a human. And I'm
Mm,
like,
that's it. That's it right there. That's
I
it.
get it.
Yeah.
I
Because
just get
you
it.
could.
I'm not going to agree with all the decisions that you made, but
Right.
you're human.
I
You're
say you
trying to
did the best
figure out
you could,
life.
you know. You were trying to figure it out
Yeah,
too. Yeah. Yeah. No, I
exactly.
agree. I agree. When I think about it, things got better. Things got much better. I think having that period of time, I guess, during my high school years helped with us with the rebuilding, if you will, because now obviously she's gone, but she's my world, and I would do all kind of things and surprises and birthdays, and one of my greatest memories is throwing her a Mother's Day party because we didn't know how much time we had left.
Hmm.
And so I respect and honor and wanted to do that and make her smile, because literally it was Mother's Day and then she died in July. So I can't say that the strain lasted forever. It was probably for a small period of time, but God allowed my heart to heal to get to a place where
Hmm.
we did become friends. And I did have the utmost love and just wanted to shower her and just support and do all the things. So with time, they say time heals all wounds, and it does. We just don't know the timetable or the time frame. But
So true.
yeah, I do believe that things got better, and we ended up mending all of that where it pretty much was non-existent, and I could just be there and love her and just take care of her when she needed me the most.
Hmm. I think too, and maybe like, do you feel like you had an openness to rebuild that relationship? I feel like that is also a very big piece, no matter if it's with our parents, no matter who it's with, in order to rebuild any sort of relationship with
Hmm.
anyone in our lives. It requires openness on
Yeah,
both
on
ends,
both. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
so
if you're
I
shut off and
imagine like
not
that was
receptive,
huge.
yeah, if you're shut off and not receptive, then it's almost like hitting a brick wall. Like, you're not going to get through. You can't penetrate my heart. Whatever you say, I'm really not
Yeah.
trying to hear it, right? You have to be in a place where you're open to receive. And I use that analogy too when people ask me about, well, grief and why did things happen, or just, trauma in general. Why do things happen? I believe that the answer won't be revealed until our hearts is open to receive the answer, because there may be some truth in
Mm.
that answer that you're not ready to hear, and you may not want to lean into whatever the truth may be, or the epiphany may be. And so the same goes for this situation. If your heart's not open to mending a relationship or being actively involved in the work that it's going to take, then no, it's not going to work. So yeah, both sides have to
Mm.
be open and ready, willing, and able, as my therapist would say, to
Yeah.
tap into that.
Yeah, I love what you said about like, we're not either like ready to the answer will reveal itself,
Hmm.
we may not
Not ready.
necessarily be ready. I love
Yeah.
that so much. I'm just like, ah, that is so true. When I just think about like my journey with my dad, I'm like, yeah, I 10 years ago,
Told you then.
I never would have thought we would have been here. I was so bitter and
Yeah.
angry and,
Yeah.
but now it's like, oh, it all makes sense. Like I see it so clearly as to
Wow.
why everything has happened the way it was
Yeah.
supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like in, I guess like on a like more spiritual, it's kind of like, my dad had like, he had his like soul contract, coming into this earth, and he's
Yep.
played it
Ooh,
exactly as he
soul
was meant to.
contract. Ooh, I like that.
Right? Like I remember I was having this conversation with someone, and she kind of said that to me. She was like,
Ooh.
"Your dad, he played the exact role he was supposed to play for you." And I was
Mm,
like, "You are one
that's
million
good.
percent right.
Yeah.
I would not be
I like that.
who I am. I would not have the wisdom that I have.
Had it not
I would
been.
not. Genuinely, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. If
And we
my
can always
parents,
trace things back.
oh yeah,
I do the timeline all the time. Like,
yeah,
I probably guarantee would not be doing what I am doing right now if my mother had died. And it sounds horrible to say, but I can track the steps to now. Because if she didn't, I'd be an athletic trainer. I wouldn't have met my husband and all of the things. So,
Isn't it so cool?
I mean, it all works
I
out. No,
know, like, again, I feel like we can have this conversation of just like, we laugh about it, we're gentle, and we just like, we have
yeah.
love, and it's like, and we also see
And
things playing out,
yeah,
the decisions that we make in our lives,
that's it. Yep.
every single decision. I was having this conversation recently too of just, even now, I mean, I'm not married yet, I'm getting married in September, and but I trace back
Yeah.
of decisions that I made prior to us being together. We've known each other for more than half my life. We've known each other, we've been in each other's lives, but the decisions that I've made with ex partners to
Mm,
then, it's
lead you to
just,
here.
oh, it gives me chills when I think about it. I'm like, wow, like
So, how do we
I
get
had to,
here?
you know, I had to say no to you and no to
Right.
you. And I was here and I was like, oh my God,
That
it's
is
wild.
wild. But that's life.
It's,
Such
mm-hmm.
is life. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can just have this different sense of like, appreciation for things, when, and I feel like a lot of like, it comes in hindsight, we, like, kind of like you said, the answer is not going to reveal itself necessarily in the moment.
Yeah.
It'll be when you're ready. And yeah, I fully believe that, and I love that you said that too. And so, kind of leaning into where you are now, like, I also, how did you navigate those milestones first? I kind of want to start there, is like, like getting married, and especially being a daddy's little girl. Like, I can imagine that. But how did you navigate those milestones? And I
Milestone.
I I, I appear, I almost imagine too, like, grief probably looked different over the years too.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
For sure.
it's probably, and it probably looks even different now. You said 17 years, the 5 year mark, the 20, like, you know what I mean? The 15-year mark was probably different. But how did you navigate milestones?
Yeah. So I think the first, and I'm about to laugh again, so forgive me because when I tell you, you'll probably laugh too. The first major one would be when I graduated college.
Yeah.
Because again, I hadn't, the most I had was a high school diploma. Like, that's all my mom saw.
Yeah.
So, college graduation, that was a big one. My family, they completely supported. They made sure that I had a, graduation party and all the things.
Oh.
It was beautiful. It was amazing. You have the little area with the candles and the pictures, and you do all of that. And then that night, I got completely wasted. So, um, that's just the truth. And but the funny but not funny thing. So she died in 2007. I graduated in 2009, so it wasn't that
Mm,
far removed. And graduation weekend was Mother's Day weekend.
of course it was.
Of course it was. So that, my friends, is the reason.
Oh, so
Oh,
interesting.
oh, oh yeah, it did me in. So much so that I gave up alcohol for at least 6 months because it was terrible.
Oh,
But yeah, so that's how I handled that one.
yeah.
But I did take a trip. I have a sister cousin who's amazing, and so I took like my first international trip, going out the country and
Mm,
all the things. And so I celebrated. I celebrated myself for sure. I think the next milestone would definitely be getting married. I
yeah.
did not want a wedding. I
Mm,
absolutely did not. My husband was all for it. It's, we only get together when it's weddings or funerals. And so I was just like, fine, y'all can do whatever
mm,
y'all want. I don't really care.
yeah.
So, I got dressed and did all the things that I was supposed to do, but certain stuff I really didn't care about. Um, but
Was it
to make
because of your parents not being there? Is that
Of
why you didn't care for
course,
it? Yeah.
100%. Didn't care.
Oh, okay.
I was like, we could go to the courthouse. I'd be completely fine with that. Because why? Like,
Mm,
my dad's not here to walk me down the aisle. My mom's not here. Like, I
yeah.
don't want to do all this. But I gave in and I went ahead and had the wedding. So my godfather and my grandfather both walked me
Mm,
down. Um, let's see, I did white doves. So we had the white doves brought in. They were walked down the aisle in a cage. And so I had My dad's best friend and my mom's brother, they both carried the doves down the aisle, and the song playing was their wedding song.
Oh,
So that was like a, homage to them, if you will. Of course, I kept
yeah.
the first front seat open with some roses
Mm.
and flowers and things, and then we did a dove release. So, like, the doves were up on the stage during the whole ceremony, so psychologically they were there. And then we released them and said, "Okay, y'all go back now." So I did do that. I think obviously, um, finding out I was pregnant and having my child was probably the toughest,
Mm.
because she wasn't there. My mother in
Yeah.
law was there in the room, and she's amazing, love her to life, but it wasn't the same. That's just the honest truth. And so I dealt with that as best as I could. I did have a little bit of postpartum. I got to one place where, of course, she's excited, and it's her first grandchild, and so she's a little overbearing. And I
Mm.
got to the point one day where I was just like, no, nobody else is coming to the house. Like, I'm tired. Like, no, no. Because, I think it was, I was nursing, and she just busted in the room and was like, where's my grandbaby? And I was like, absolutely not. And I
Mm.
lost it because I was just like, this is too much. Like, stop.
Yeah.
And so I shut the house down for like a week. And I was like, nobody come over. Nobody.
Good
And then
for
I got myself
you.
together and I was okay. But like, that had to happen for me to do it because I was like, ah. But, I had a
But I
grandmother.
think that's yeah, I think that's something though that our I don't know. I just feel like I I feel like that's not necessarily anything with like you having like your parents and stuff not being there. It's like just like in
But still,
general,
yeah. I probably
right?
would have
And
did if
and
my
and
mother did it to me.
right? Exactly. And
Probably
that's I
would have.
think such a big thing that at least like I'm becoming more mindful of too. My sister, my older sister, she's had two kids and she's the closest to me that I've seen really seen like having kids.
Yeah.
I was in the room unwillingly when she gave birth to her first, and it was just not where I wanted to be,
My,
that's for sure.
it's a
It
lot.
was not supposed to be that way. I got stuck. um but it's she's been the closest,
Yeah.
and I've seen her life change, and I've seen her change. And one thing that I just am so more mindful of is when someone has a baby, especially looking at the mother and checking in on the mother first.
You have to.
When you walk in the door,
Like,
don't go
hey.
straight to the don't go straight to the baby.
Yeah. I'm here
Go to the
too,
mom,
guys.
right? Like, and so I think that's just in general the thing that if we're looking at kind of like the generations before us,
Hmm.
they're not as mindful of. They're like, give me the grandbaby, give me the,
Where's
the
my
niece,
grandbaby?
whatever. Yeah. And it's just them just being mindful,
Yeah.
even too. After I got engaged, I remember, one of the first things one of my aunts said to me, and, I know where she's coming from. I know she's coming from a beautiful place, but I honestly was at a place where I was like, terrified to have
Mm,
kids. And this is only a couple of years ago. Like I was in
yeah.
this place of like, I actually am not sure I want to have kids because I'm so terrified.
Yeah.
And one of the first things she said to me was, you guys are going to have such beautiful kids, after she found out that we got engaged. And I'm like,
Yeah.
please, like, like just be
Let's
mindful of not
breathe.
saying, like, what if my choice is not to have kids?
Right.
It's just that
Yeah.
mindfulness.
Gotta
And
lead with that.
we
If
got to
you
take care of the
decide.
mothers. Yeah, we got to pay attention to the mothers. I don't mean to cut you off, but I feel like
No.
that's just
Good.
setting those boundaries, like
It's important.
empowering women, young women, to like all women who are having a baby, to create that space. If you don't want people in your home for a freaking week, don't have people in your home.
Yeah. It's very simple. They will be
Yeah.
okay. Okay. And if they're not, then
Yeah.
do they really love you? I think they'll be okay.
Hmm. But what's life been like, raising raising the little one, raising your daughter?
Therapy.
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 I'm
So she's
sure.
in this. She's 11. So she's
Oh
in the
wow.
yeah, we're getting to the fun stuff now.
Preteen. The fun preteen. Do you remember yourself at 11? I'm like, oh God.
I do, and that scares me. Uh, and she's in middle school, so she's gifted, and we had skipped her when she was younger, and so now it's kind of it's a sensitive spot because in some ways she's still in the mind of a kid, if you will,
Hmm.
but she's exposed by being in middle school, and she goes to a
Mm.
6 through 12, so she sees a little bit of everything,
Oh
right?
wow.
Yeah. So we're dealing with that, but overall, before I even go any deeper, she's an amazing kid. I will
Mm.
say that she's great. She's very loving. She's a giver. She really has a great heart. But life is life. Like she's growing up. She's learning different things. So it kind of is what it is. But it's not easy. It's not. There's been plenty of times, even when she was a baby. I would think back and say things like, I wonder if I did this, or I wonder if
Mm.
I behave like that, because maybe that'll help me to understand why certain things she's
Mm.
doing. Then I have a little more understanding if I did it. And then it's funny because a lot of the things that she does do is actually my husband. So it's like, well, does it even matter? Because she's picking up his behaviors. But nevertheless, I have to tap into what was poured into me, because even though my time with my parents was cut short, I think that they gave me a great amount of tools. Even with my dad, and only, I don't even know if you can say 12 years, because I don't remember nothing at 2. So,
Yeah,
the
that's
formative
true.
years, I would say maybe 9, 10, and 11, like right in there. Those type of things I remember. And especially, like I said, us having the quality time and showing love, like those type of, now he was a disciplinarian, of course, very military, but in spite of all of that, I knew that my daddy loved me. And so
Mm.
I hold on to that, and I try to infuse those things in in my parenting style. And then same thing with my mother. She was the sweetest. Like everybody loved her, and she was very giving, and she loved people. And so I try to have that kind of personality, and still do what I have to do to make sure my child stays on the straight and narrow. But
Yeah.
I try to take those attributes from her and infuse that into my parenting. That
Mm.
sometimes I just gotta lay in the bed and cuddle with her, because I did that, and I know that
Mm.
that's what she likes, and that's how she knows that she's safe, and she's, mom's got her back, and she knows my personality is very, can be very sassy, if you will, but she knows that something, if she's being mistreated at school, she knows mom's going to come there, and she's going to handle what needs to be handled. And so that's something that
Yeah.
I got from her, because same thing. So I say all that to say, I think in some ways they left me just enough to be able to
Mm.
do this. But it still doesn't take away the fact that very often I'm like, God, I need my mother. Like I posted a
Mm.
video almost 4 weeks ago now, and you could say it went baby viral, if you will. But I had a moment where I was washing clothes, and I was just like, God, I need my mother. And I was just overcome with emotions, and people connected with that. But those moments will still happen, and we still
Mm-hmm.
have a ways to go. Like I said, she's on the way to being a preteen, and all the things that come with
100%.
becoming a woman. And I'm just waiting on all of
Mm-hmm.
that. And I have my therapist on speed dial
Yeah,
because
for
I don't,
sure.
and I will say, I still have my mother's mother. So I still have one grandparent that's still living.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, I get some wisdom and things from her. But outside of that, it's just
Mm.
me and the Lord figuring this out.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's like helped you build more trust in yourself?
That's a good question. Yes and no. I
Hmm.
say yes because I do believe that I have enough. Like she's alive. I've done well enough thus far. But part of me says no too because um I do question some things. I
Hmm.
do wonder how I'm doing. And my husband has to remind me, I won't say often, but every now and then, if we're out and we see other children, he reminds me that Riley's not that.
Hmm.
And because, that particular child that we're witnessing may not be behaving in the right way, or they're talking back, or, just doing things that just would be
Yeah.
favorable. Those are the moments when he has to remind me, because I will, get down on myself like, I don't know what I'm doing. He'll remind me that, no, we're doing all right. She's not that.
Mm.
She still is on honor roll. She's still on principals list, honorable,
Yeah.
whatever, honor roll. And then there's like the principal's honor roll. That's what's called. She's
Yeah.
still excelling in that. And she's gifted and she plays all the sports and, she's still a sweetheart. So even in the moments when I feel like she's not acting the way that I would want her to, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
beating myself up because I feel like I've done something wrong or I've missed the mark, then I get those reminders that no, we're not perfect, but we're not that either. So,
Yeah.
so I'm
What a
like,
beautiful
okay,
thing to have too in like your
like you're,
relationship with
yeah,
your husband too. Like to be able to have that, and it's kind of like that piece around. I mean, I always used to say like, "Oh yeah, relationships are 50-50." And I was like, "Nah, they're not 50-50. Like, wait a second. There's going to be days that we are
mm,
not at our 100%. That's
talk
just a
about it.
given,
Talk,
And so I think part of relationships is understanding that and knowing that and accepting that there's going to be days I'm not going to be at my 100%, and you might have to like meet me more than I can meet you,
yeah,
and vice versa. And when you can have that kind of relationship where, he doesn't fault you for it, he doesn't judge you for it, and he just like shows up for you in those moments. Like that is just like beautiful to have that in your relationship. Like I love that.
yeah. I'm grateful for that,
Yeah.
for sure,
Mm, that's
for
so
sure.
good. So good. Oh my gosh. I mean, I could just tell, like, even just like, just be, I'm like, hell yeah, she's got an incredible mom, but I also, and there's, I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, as I was listening to you, there's also some things that, I don't know if you thought about it, but things that I kind of in this moment, like, I even grieve for your daughter in the sense of like, that relationship with our grandparents that although she has of course like on your dad on her dad's side, but
Yeah,
on your side, right, like she doesn't have that relationship with that set of grandparents, and so I just like I feel for her in that too. Like there's
yeah,
other pieces that are still going to be grieving, and that's what's kind of interesting about grief is like you have your own grief, your
and
daughter's going to have her own grief too,
yeah, yeah.
and
I mean,
navigating
you're
that.
absolutely right, and I don't want to say, well, it's hard to say whether or not it's a generational curse or not, but like my mother's father passed before I was born. So I
Oh.
experienced it as well. Now, I have her stepdad, which theoretically became my grandfather, but the truth of the matter is, no, my biological grandfather was not alive. I
Mm.
didn't have him. So it's like I experienced that with them, and then now she's experiencing it through me. And so,
Mm.
I've had to work through those thoughts too,
Mm.
just
Yeah.
as you just said, because it's like, okay, here we go again. So, I am hopeful that, Riley, it'll stop here and we won't have to, go through that
Yeah.
anymore. But yeah,
Hmm.
I have
And also,
recognized
how beautiful that her mom
that.
can help her in those moments too, because her mom's been through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
we have, she has unfortunately experienced a lot of loss too. Even
Mm.
before the age of 11, she actually just lost her grandfather. Well, actually,
Oh.
the step grandfather I was referring to, he passed in
Yeah.
22, and then her other grandfather, who was really close to, just died in November. And
Oh.
so, she has been experiencing her own set of grief and pain, and she's a trooper. She's been handling it okay, but for me, because I understand, I'm like, God, Lord, she's going through all of this too. So,
Mm.
I am here to guide and to listen, and
Mm-hmm.
just as you said, help her through it. Even my husband, he still has both of his parents, so
Yeah.
there will be a day that I'll have to do the same for him.
Mm.
So, I'm grateful that now I've come through the painful part of it. Not that I still don't have my moments, but
Yeah.
that enriching, just I can't get out of bed. I've come through that season of it, and so that's what I'm
Mm.
grateful for.
Yeah. And I think that's a piece too, is like, seasons. Not everything is
Yep.
going to last forever.
No.
It is all temporary. I know it's hard to even receive that in the moment when you are
Oh yeah.
experiencing
We
not
don't
even
believe
just,
that.
any sort of grief, any sort of pain that you're experiencing, it's not going to help make sense that this is temporary. But I think it's important, and I was thinking about this earlier, of just like, I think a huge thing is you had community around you. You had family. Like, we can't underestimate the aspect of community and whatever that looks like. Direct family,
Friends.
chosen
Yeah.
family, however we look,
Yep.
community. When
It matters.
community riles together,
It matters.
like, it gives me chills just thinking about it. Like, that makes all the difference for children. No matter what they
Yeah.
experience, right? Like losing for you, like losing both your parents. But, I think about too, I think about like children who I have a dear friend, their son was born with cerebral palsy. And, the doctor said he's not going to walk, he's not going to talk. And they did not accept it as parents. They weren't accepting that reality.
Yeah.
Their son talks, their
Oh wow.
son sings, like,
Oh wow.
he's like become an
Oh wow.
advocate, like, you know what I mean? And I'm just like,
Mhm.
it gives me just chills to think about it. And I just think about,
Accountability.
it's a testament
Yeah.
of your parents, of community riling for
Wow.
you. Like, community is such a huge
Yeah.
piece, and I think it's people choosing to step up for us too. And also the reverse is like us being willing to receive community and not
I was gonna
shut
say
our
that. I was
hearts
getting ready to say that.
from receive that.
I was getting ready to say that because a lot of times, people say I need support, but truth is, and people don't like to hear it because I have to give the honest truth, but you have to be vulnerable too. It, in
Hmm.
some regards, in some, I won't say like the first couple of days and the first couple of weeks, because again, everything is fresh and people are they want to be there. But the reality is people goes back to their regular lives, and so you are responsible for your healing. So the calls are going to stop and the text message are going to become very few. So you have
Hmm.
to be willing and vulnerable enough to say, hey, I'm having a tough time. Can you talk? Or can I come
Yeah.
over? You have to be in a position where you feel comfortable. And then obviously, knowing you can't do that with everybody, there has to
No.
be trusted people that you can do that. And that's why I'm glad you said it, big on community. I've been trying to foster communities where if you feel like there's somebody in your inner circle, if you will, that you can't talk to, well, here's another community that you can speak to people who understand. If you haven't walked these shoes, it's very difficult to understand. You can empathize, and just, you obviously you want to be there to support people, but there's another level of understanding when you walk this walk. And so when you can be in community with people who say, yes, I get it. Yes, I understand. Oh, I felt that too, then there's
Mm.
a sense of connection that you're not going through this by yourself.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Oh my gosh. I am so deeply grateful. Like, this has just been such a
This has been good.
beautiful conversation.
Yeah.
So good. I'm so grateful. But before we kind of fully wrap up, I always kind of ask if
Yeah.
you could distill your life's journey into, one piece of wisdom for those that are listening, what would it be?
One piece of wisdom. That's really hard because I have a few. But I would say it's very simple, and that's to keep going.
Mm.
No matter what you've experienced, what battle has come your way, what situation you've had to walk through, keep going, because you
Mm.
do not know what lies ahead on the other side for you. And even Ashley Ann said this, and I'm glad you said it, that everything happens in seasons. Just like in life, right? We have winter, spring, summer, fall, right? We're going to continue to move. We're going to continue to evolve. And I wouldn't want you to make any permanent or, irrational decisions based off of right now. Because sometimes we
Mm.
can't see beyond where we are right now. And so just hold on to the fact that it's not going to last forever. And
Mm.
whatever the situation may be, it's going to end up working out for your good. You may not see that or feel that right now in the moment, but just trust and believe that whatever it is, it's going to work out for your greatest good. And
Mm.
so the nugget is just to keep going, because there's going to be an opportunity, there's going to be a moment, there's going to be a relief, a joy on the other side if you just can hold on and keep pushing through.
Full body chills from that. I'm just gonna let that one sink in. That
Really,
was,
it's really
it
the truth.
is. Mm-hmm. 100%. For those that are listening and they want to connect with you or just continue to follow your journey, what's the best way? If there's anything that you feel called to share.
Sure. So I do a lot of posts on my Instagram. That's kind of like my platform of choice. So you can find me at Kenisha Nichelle. Very simple. If there's anyone listening and you are, and I'm not sure when this is going to air, but if you find yourself as being in this club of having lost a parent or even both, I am working on hosting some sort of virtual event around Mother's Day, Father's Day, because it is a very tough time. And I just think that we can get overlooked, right? The rest of the world is celebrating moms and dads, and you yourself, like me, it's a catch 22. Like, they want to celebrate me, but I don't, I guess,
It's different.
and so I'm thinking about just hosting just a small space for us, to be together so we can
Mm.
honor them, the roles that they played in their lives, but also to be in a space where it may be a tough day. It may not be easy. And so you should be with other people who understand. So if you are interested in being a part of that, you can check out my website, KenishaNichelle.com, and there's information there. Also, the link in my bio on Instagram will take you to the information page as well.
Thank you so much for that. I am 100% going to leave that and share that. Um, I'm so grateful to have
Thank
had
you.
this conversation, but also to just have connected with you. Like, yeah, this has just been so
I've already started following you, so
beautiful.
we're going to be
Yeah,
connected.
we are. We definitely 100% are going to be. So thank you
Yes.
so much for just this time and being here. I'm so grateful for you sharing your journey and also just being so transparent in moments too, right? I know it's not easy for
Yeah.
us to, sometimes vulnerability is not necessarily the challenge. It's like there's a transparency aspect, and
Yeah.
I just honor that in you too, and I see that, and I'm so grateful for you and for you
Thank
sharing
you.
all your beautiful wisdom. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media. And we'll see you in the next episode.